Hello, everyone. Today is April 16th, 2023. My guest today is Edward Olgin. Edward is an architect. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Edward.
Hey, thanks for having me, Karush. Good seeing you again.
Yes, it's good seeing you again. You and I work together as engineers, and we were architecting all types of stuff back then.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, we were developing, definitely designing a lot of stuff. Yeah, pushing everything forward.
So, how did you're not from California.
No, that's correct.
How did you make your way out to California?
So I'm originally from Texas. It's a little city called Midland. Everybody asks me what big city it's next to, but it's not really. It's like smack in the middle of El Paso and Dallas. Where the wing is, the New Mexico. So literally, it's like in the middle. There's no big cities next to it, but it's 100,000 people. It's not like tiny. So, and there's three like 100,000 people within like 20 miles apart. So it's not completely isolated from everything, but and football's life there. So, I mean, you heard Friday Night Lights, that's the same area. So, but I grew up in poverty. I grew up in a heavy, Black community. So let's just say when you grow up in that environment, it either eats you alive or, makes you determined to get out. And so at that point, I was ready to do whatever it took. So after high school, I had like free college, but I knew that it was going to take more money than just tuition and books covered. So, and also I started working at 16. So I started like partying a little too young, I knew I didn't have any discipline. I knew if I went to college, I would just, blow it all away and all that. So I saw the solution being joining the military. And so I joined the Marine Corps because I basically for the dress whites, and because if you're going to join the service, why not join the toughest one? So that's why I did the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps brought me out here to Camp Pendleton. I was lucky. Because normally in a 4-year term, you get 1 year overseas in Japan, but I came here first and I became like a key personnel. So when my time was ready to come, this messed up, but they put somebody else in my spot to go. So they shipped somebody else out for me. And so, but I fell in love with the weather here. It's quite pricey. Texas doesn't have a state tax. California does. So I'm paying the price for staying here, but you basically stay here for the weather. And so, because if you go to the East Coast, you've got water, but it's very hot and humid. Here, you got no, the humidity is here, but you don't feel it. Like it's different, completely different. And so I'm here to stay unless, I don't know, unless something happens to where it gets too crazy, because with taxation and everything, I have a feeling it's only going to get worse.
Yes. And the weather everywhere else in this country, I think, is much worse than Southern California. Last year, 2022, Texas had that snowstorm. Florida's had hurricanes, and there's tornadoes in like the Midwest. Mm-hmm. California, and the taxes are very high. They're like the highest. I believe we have the highest state income tax in the country.
I can't say with 100% certainty, but it's up there.
Yes,
it's definitely up there.
Yes, so there's a great culture here, and there's a lot of people who want to build technology here, and I don't think you get that in other places. Maybe in like Boston, but there's a lot of engineers here who want to build tech like you.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also in this since there's such much diversity, nobody is from here. Everybody that's here are imports. So like yes. There's no community, there's no, like in Texas, all your neighbors, everyone, half the city knows who you are, because they have community, they have stability and continuation and, continuity. And here it's all a bunch of disparate people. Nobody cares. Everybody's trying to do their own thing. Even I'll give you an example. Like if you go to the grocery store, and you got like two things in your hand and the person has a cart in front of you, here they look at you like, wait your turn. In Texas, they would be like, that's all you got? Oh, go ahead, man. Don't be crazy. Go. Those kind of little things are what you lose when you come to areas like this.
Yes, people are much less friendly here. It, you said Keeper Snell, and that's the reason you didn't go. Is that what you said?
Well, I became I became like the data chief, so I was like in charge of the whole network and for the tactical and the enterprise, because this is before an MCI. So whenever I was a Marine, I know the Marines are like the military screwed now. So like, because before when I was a Marine from 98 to 02, NMCI didn't exist. So we maintained all of the computers and servers, all all the business systems that the military used for our area, right? So in Camp Pendleton, there's like 30 something, 40 something areas. So every area has a little network, communication place, and each one of those places. I was in Margarita, so I was in 33 area, and so I was responsible for 33 area. But basically, what was cool was, I mean, I started off running cables, troubleshooting, help desk, and then as time goes on, if you're quick and if you're if you're good and pick things up, next thing you know, you're fixing computers, then you're working in the server farm, helping rebuild systems, you know what I mean? And then on the tactical side, every time because basically the Marines were always playing war, right? So every time we play war, we go to and in this case, 29 Palms, middle of the desert, and we set up networks in the middle of nowhere over and over and over again. So each time that we do that, we used to build the network from scratch, and that was where you did the real learning, right? But now the Marines, they don't have any power over any of the enterprise network. The only time they get on the gear is when they go outside, and so it's kind of really limited them. Now they have to call the help desk. I mean, computer guys have to call the help desk. So how good can they really get with that kind of limited exposure? And so I'm just saying I was lucky. So literally, as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, guess where I went to go work for? In MCI. So I went to go work because NMCI came into play. I went to go work for NMCI because I was going to UCSD and they were flexible with my school. They let me come in Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 12-hour days, and then come in on Saturday for 4 hours and just come in and do the backlog of tickets. Start working on the backlog of tickets. And so that's kind of how all that started. But yeah. I jumped ahead, but go ahead. Where we?
What's NMCI?
You say what's NMCI?
Yes.
The Naval Marine Corps intranet. So that's basic. The laptops that we used at work, like at Navor. But basically, the Navy uses them. Navor uses them. Any kind of DoD installation on an enterprise business side is using NMCI.
Okay. And you were doing school while you worked there.
Correct. And I was waiting tables on the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you go to school for?
Electrical engineering at UCSD.
Wow.
The depth of networking.
So you rolled your eyes. What's the reason you rolled your eyes?
Well, because the depth of network, because I was a network guy, right? I've been networking, remember I was a Marine network guy, I was NFCI network guy, so I was going to school to I thought I picked networking, this is gonna be easy, right? this is my forte. But they go to a level of networking where you're talking about probability statistics of the protocols, the underlining, and at this point, I'm just getting started. I'm not even thinking about I'm not trying to create protocols. I'm trying to master the ones that exist, right? So what I'm saying is it was a lot harder than I expected, and it was unnecessarily hard because of what my goals were at the time. So I mean there was periods of time where, because I never struggled in school, right? In high school and all that, I kind of never studied. I was one of those kids where I got outstanding student in math my junior year, that kind of thing. I set the curve, never had to study, just came natural, and so. But that's because most schools, you go to class, you pay attention, you take notes, the tests come up, you do the homework. And for the quizzes, you study your homework and notes, and you ace the quizzes, right? It took me I would study the class before, look it over, and then okay, cool. And so to prep, and then the tests were reflective of all the collective group, right, of their home. But basically, there wasn't too many surprises. You could ace everything if you just paid attention. And so at UCSD, you went to UCSD too, right?
I did.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about, because basically it was you go in, you pay attention, you go to class, they talk about all these topics. The teachers are very hard to understand. They're all over the place. They give you all this information, and then they for example, I have this analogy that I give, right? They'll teach you, 1 + 1 = 2. It's a very oversimplified example, but they'll teach you 1 + 1 = 2. And you're like, all right, cool. I can do this. 1 + 1 = 2. I got it. I got this. And then on the test day, it'll be like AX + BY = C. And you're like, holy, what? Like, what am I supposed to do with these variables? Like, what? We never learned about variables and like, what is going on, right? And so basically the quizzes were not reflective of the homework. The homework was impossible. Everybody damn near had to have solution study guides to get it through because it was impossible. And so because they didn't cover enough in the topics, you basically had to read the thing cover to cover. And for somebody like me who was just naturally never studied a day in his life, I went from a straight A student to a 2.2. I graduated with a 2.2 because I could barely, but so that's kind of why I started out as a computer engineer, right? So computer science / electrical engineer. But I couldn't, the level of like the computer science, like these guys, I mean, you either had to be amazing or you were failing. And like I said, I was already in my career at this point. I was like 7 years in, like I had 7 years experience. I was like, I need the degree. I don't, basically, because if you don't have experience, then the degree and the GPA means everything, right? But if you have all the experience, then now the GPA doesn't mean as much. But I chose the UCSD, same reason Marine Corps, right? I was like, if I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna pick the hardest degree from the hardest school, so that way nobody can ever question my intelligence again, right? Especially me, because I was a Marine jock, lettered every sport. I was a sports guy, right? And so in our industry, a sports guy, a UCSD, right? I stuck out like a sore thumb. People were like, "Are you in the right class? Like, what's going on?" Right? And so it's the fact that I was a Mexican Marine freaking jock, like all these things were against me, but I mean, I loved it, right? That makes you special, right? When you overcome all of that, that's what makes it worth it. And so, anyways, but the point of my story is I doubted that I called my mom crying because I didn't think I was going to finish. Because my GPA fell to a 1.7, so it fell under a 2. Like I went from, like I said, I transferred with a 3.8 because the only B's that I even got at the other college, Miracosta, right? Nothing. It's like high school. But Miracosta, the only B's I got was because I was a Marine and I would deploy and I would kind of just blow off my assignments while I was gone. And so I would get B's in those classes, right? And so that's kind of how I had a 3.8. So I kind of had like a perfect score. And I come here and all of a sudden I never had a C in my life, right? And I'm getting C's, D's, I's, W. Well, not I's. I would withdraw before it got to an I. But basically, I never had a W before, and all of a sudden, I had a whole sheet of W's, and I'm like, because I tried to overdo it. Like I tried to, and the other thing that I did was I filled out the IGETC, which is like all your electives and all that. So when I went to UCSD and I transferred in, it was like straight up a division. I had no fluff because I had already taken all my electives. So literally, it was because that's what most people that are successful do, right? They take 2 core and like 2 electives so that they can balance out the hardness. I didn't have that luxury because I had already, and I didn't really have good. Oh, that's if I can recommend one thing to people is get your damn agenda, itinerary, your agenda all together right about from beginning to end. Go find out what college you want to graduate from. Find out what the requirements are, because somebody like myself, I didn't have any kind of guidance, and I kind of taught myself. Right, I ended up with 260 units, and you only need like 100, and you only need like 160 to graduate. So like I took all these extra courses that were unnecessary, that wasted time, money, effort. I ended up graduating in 2007 when I could have probably graduated in 2005. But I didn't know, and I didn't make it a priority to know. So like I said, if I could recommend that to anybody, is first thing you do is figure out what degree you want from what school, and reverse engineer it that way. So that way you can take the minimal classes and meet all the objectives and not waste any time.
Yes, that's huge. And having that fluff, I know transfers had a really tough time because they would have completed all their electives in CC. And then the 4 years they like put in like these, like, I don't know, business 101 in there with like EC 107. And it really balances itself out because, you don't want to say business is easier, but electrical engineering is really, really tough. So yes. And going back to what you said, like UCSD, there's a stigma in the San Diego engineering industry that graduates of UCSD, like recent grads, are not as valuable as recent grads from SDSU. Because yes, because the SDSU engineers get
Practical
more.
application.
Yes, and we got theory. We got a lot
All
of theory.
But hey, but in all honesty, the thing that I feel like the thing it was supposed to do for us is what it did was it gave us the ability to research and learn. That's kind of what you're supposed to take away from college, right? Is that you need to be able to do research and learn on your own, because that's life. Because once you get out of college, no, you dictate how far or how short you go, because everything's on you.
Everything's on you. That's correct. And you got out of there, dude. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I graduated, right? And so that's the other recommendation I tell people now. That's the other big one, is I tell people while they're in school to take a job in the industry, right? Like, look at my situation in example, right? I did 4 years in the Marine Corps as a computer guy, right? And so I did 4 years at NMCI while I was finishing school. Here's the other thing. I got my AA before I got out of the Marine Corps. Like, my 4 years I was in, I got my AA before I got out. I don't know many Marines that did that either, right? So, and especially because like I did full time while I was in the Marine Corps. Like, it was crazy. I would go every night to school. I was Marine, like, we work out in the mornings, Marine, then I would work out at the gym at lunch. Then I go, as soon as lunch was over, as soon as work was over, I would go straight to college every day, and then rinse, repeat every day, literally for 4 years. That's what I did. And so it was, but anyways, the point that I was getting to was I tell people to get in the industry, even if it's a part-time job, just some experience, right? Because look, in my situation, I had 4 years Marines, and then I had 4 years while I was in college, 8 years. Then I got my degree. Guess what? 8 years plus a degree. All of a sudden, I'm a senior systems engineer at Raytheon, making 90 grand a year. And this is back when 90 grand was a big deal. Like, 90 grand is like nothing now, but 90 grand back then, it's funny because money has a way of always being like you're out of your grasp. And what I mean is when you're on the poor Marine, I was like, if I can make 60 grand a year, I'll be good. You get to 60 grand. You know what? If I can get to 80 grand, I'll be good. If I get to 100 grand, I'm set. They keep the carrot keeps moving on you. Like, it's never enough. Because and also that's the other part. Like, because I was raised poor, right? So that's the other part that made me huge into paying attention to taxes. Because all of a sudden, if you make 150 grand, you're not even taking home 100. You're not even taking home 100. And when I saw that, this is later on, right? When I saw that was whenever I was like, holy crap, the system is broken. Literally.
Well, if you don't live in California, you're taking home 100, but we Californians don't.
Well, you probably take home like around 105, 110 if you're somewhere else. Because you're paying.
If you have zero.
Yeah. Well, I claim zero because you're talking about zero on the tax, right? On your form.
Well, Washington State has zero income tax, and we have 9%. So we get one. So say we have a 150K salary, that's 15K we're paying to California that the Washington State isn't taking from.
And the worst part about all that I've paid into for all this time is ask me how much I've gotten out, right? I may have gotten unemployment once for a few months. Oh, I did get PFL though when I had the child, but that's a pretty good benefit. I don't know if you know that, but it's
what was that?
Paid family leave. So basically,
wow.
It's because the max of unemployment is $450 a week, right? So your PFL is actually like 60% of your income. So like instead of like what 450 times 4, what is that, like $1,800 a month? I was making 16 or 6 grand instead of 1,500. So like it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So so that was kind of sweet. I didn't know that. So basically, besides one unemployment stint in that PFL for a couple of weeks, I've got nothing out of the system. Nothing. All I've done is give.
It definitely needs to be checked in our state.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that, man. With ballot harvesting being legal and everything, we'll never. It's out of our control.
What did you say? What harvesting?
Ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting is legal in California. That's how Democrats have. Where basically anybody can turn in any ballot for anybody. So that's why these people go and they go out and they canvass the areas. If they find a bunch of, I'm being theoreticized, but the point is anybody can go, like you can go to the neighborhoods. You know how like if you go to old neighborhoods, maybe they don't take the time to do the stuff. They'll canvass the areas and they'll talk to them about voting. Say, hey, we'll turn it for you. And so, like for example, the very I haven't voted very many times, but one of the times that I did, like this is kind of what made me lose faith in voting here, was I went into the library to turn in my ballot. Me and my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we went to go turn in our ballots, and we walk in, handing our ballots, thinking we did some kind of service. I turn around as I'm walking out, and this dude's coming in with bags of ballots. And if I knew back then what I knew, if I knew, back then what I knew now, I would have never let him turn those in. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have grabbed them and be like, you take them from me, fool. Like, no, there's no way. Like, because in my mind, I thought that was just somebody from some other place bringing the ballots from a different location into, because I had no idea about ballot harvesting. Right. And so, but anyways, until we get rid of ballot harvesting, I mean, there's never going to be a change of power here.
What's the reason ballot harvesting is not good?
Because it allows it gives room for fraud. I mean, the point is, if we need IDs to go we need ID to buy a freaking to buy some kind of medicine, some medicines at the store. You need an ID. You need an ID to get a driver. You need an ID for everything. And the fact that they say, the fact that voter ID, they make it about race and poverty, that's a moot point. You're saying poor people can't do paperwork and stuff, and it's anyways. Let's not go too far down that subject because it can get. I don't want to turn people off.
I understand. It's interesting. Yes. People should vote if they want to vote, and go into the ballot office if they feel like it. And you're right, it adds a lot of room for fraud if like there's someone taking the ballot from that person to the mailbox.
Well, think about this. Have you never, during one of the elections, have you never seen a pile of ballots anywhere? I've seen them like on the side of the street and sometimes like next to mailbox, like just sitting there. I don't know how they get there or whatnot, but I've seen ballots in crazy places. To think that anybody could just pick them up, fill them out, turn them in, no questions asked. Like that to me is just unbelievable.
Yes, definitely. If that doesn't seem like a good system.
Well, it's just that's not what I joined the Marine Corps to protect. That's not what we had in mind when we were, when we're doing our service. Because we have faith in the system. I had faith in the government. I had faith in everything. And as time goes on, you start realizing that like kind of like your career, everything's on you. You can't rely on the government for anything. You can if you're poor, but who wants to be poor, right? If you have the opportunity not to be poor, why would you be poor? If you're poor, great. The state's great. If you're poor, you get all kinds of benefits. I know people that are living in houses, my neighbors, that are paying nothing because of they're paying a fraction of what they're paying. Granted, they don't get when they cash out on if they leave or whatever, the city gets the money of the house, right? But they're getting to live, but they can stay there forever for the price of a fraction of the price of what we're paying, and they're literally our neighbors, and which is fine. But I'm just saying, if you're like somebody that's it's a good welfare state is what I'm saying.
Yes, there is money, there is welfare. 9.8% I think is our income tax, which is really high, and this is like I don't know if it's the highest grossing income state in the I think it is. It's like the number 6 economy in the world, so it's definitely got the most income.
Yeah, I think so. I think it has the highest population as well.
Wow. Okay, and what is that you're talking about where they pay a fraction but they can't have the rights to sell, or they can't make a profit if so?
In the house, so one of the townhomes that I owned, right, that I bought, that I that did everything the right way, across the way, there's single mothers living there, and for example, right, my mortgage was like $2,600, and they're paying like $1,000, right, to live in the same unit as me, brand new. I bought it brand new in 2013, and they're at 2013, and they're living in brand new townhomes next to me for like I said, $1,000 a month. And I mean, to be honest, I'm friends with them, and I still keep in touch, and they're still there, like literally. So literally, which is, I mean, which I get. I mean, in this, like, they're great people. I love them. So, like, I don't mean it in that, but my point is, in these situations, it does leave room for fraud, right? Because think about it. There's 3 bedrooms. They can rent out a room. Now all of a sudden, their whole rent's covered, and they're, you know what I mean, and they're bending the rules. They're bending the system. They're exploiting the system. I mean, it's the fact. What if they have a 3-bedroom and they, and they have rent out 2 rooms? Now they're making money off the same scenario. You know what I'm saying? So it just opens the door for, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It opens the door for more for abuse, mismanagement, how if you will, which we're good at here.
I understand what you're saying, and it does leave a lot of room for abuse. And like you said earlier, though, yes, they can take advantage of that. I know some other people who have situations that are similar, who live like very close to paycheck on government stipends, and that's a stressful life.
I grew up in that life, yeah, with food stamps and all that. I remember.
And you said it was hard.
I don't know how my mom did it. I look back at it and I don't know how she did it. I have no idea.
And she was a single mom then too, right?
Well, she became single mom. It was so this like my mom and dad divorced. My mom cheated on my dad, right, and broke up the family. But at the same time, when we were young, we blamed her, or wait, I forget. Yeah, when we were young, we blamed her, right? Because at the surface, it looks like she just cheated, right? But as I've gotten older, now I realize my father had just as much to blame, because he was one of those dads that basically knocked her up, went to work. When she would come home, he didn't like. I remember him sleeping, and when we would have lunch or when we would eat together, like my mom yelling at him, and he was just passive, didn't, what I mean, just never, just whatever, did no feedback, nothing, just them. There was not, like, basically she just, women need, food, water, and attention, compliments. If you don't give them that, they're like a flower. If you don't give them that, they starve and they seek it elsewhere eventually. It's only a matter of time. And in the moment that because, in the relationship, a man and woman, like, we try to court them, right? It's up to the woman to decide. They decide at a certain point, they decide to give us a chance. They say, okay, I'll give this guy a chance. And for us, it's up to us to either water the relationship and feed it and grow it and cultivate it, or not feed it, starve it, and like I said, then it'll go elsewhere. But the thing is that if you're lucky enough to somehow get through all of this, and so there's a moment in time where the woman actually falls in love, like if she actually falls in true love with you, she's yours forever. If you're willing to, as long as you feed the relationship, right? But the moment you strain and you starve it, and if at any time that love breaks and so you hurt her and she falls out of love with you, it's almost impossible to get it back. So at that point, if you've broken it, you might as well just cut your losses and run, because even if you are, like, speaking from experience, right? Even if you are lucky to overcome, like, say for example, you break up and you say, I need to go, I have, when we're college sweethearts, I need to go sow my wild oats. If I don't do this, I'm worried we're gonna, I'm gonna break up my family the way my mom did, and so I was worried about that. And whenever I did that, like, I didn't do anything, right? Like, I went to go sow my wild oats, but I realized I hurt her and I never went anywhere. So literally I stayed there. You know what I mean? I moved out, but every weekend I was coming over to her because I was worried about her. So we never really kind of broke up, right? But at the same time, I showed her I was willing to leave. And, and so even when we got back together, every time we got in a fight, she would always say things like, are you sure you want this for the rest of your life? Are you sure you want this for the rest of your life? Are you sure you want this for the rest of your life? And then, you know what? One day you're just like, you know what? You're fucking right. I don't want this the rest of my life. You know what? And so, anyways, that's from my personal experience. And so that's how I had. That was my college sweetheart, right? I had to end up cutting my losses with that. So, but I mean, she was a wonderful person. That was the other thing too, was she was like Little Miss Perfect, right? She never did anything wrong. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just I am far from perfect, right? I am flawed. I have lots of things I'm working on. I'm a continual work in progress. And I like to think I'm a good person, but I mean I am a good person, but
Yes.
in terms of a relationship, like I mean I like I like women, I've always liked women, and I've always liked, and so I knew that I never cheated, right? I've never cheated because I've in my relationship, I've always, I believe in the golden rule, right? Treat others the way to be treated, right? So I would never want my woman to talk ill about me to other people. I don't talk ill about my woman to other people. I will never, you know what I mean? I don't, anything I reciprocate. I always put myself in the other person's shoes. And even, at work, I do that too, but I'm not initially, because like when things happen in the heat of the moment, I get upset and I'll lose it, but then I go back and reflect and I reverse roles. Hey, how could I have handled this differently? And that's how I end up, resolving most of my issues long term. But yeah, no, that's but I ended up I did end up after breaking it or shoot, sorry, after at 28, I ended up breaking up with my college sweetheart, moving downtown to go sow my wild oats, which was honestly the best thing I've ever done in my life, or the smartest thing I've ever done, because even though I spent a fortune, I literally did the math, man. I spent over 500 grand in 7 years downtown. I was making what, 120 a year at the time, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no bills when I showed down there. I had like 30 grand in savings, blew through the savings, started because I was buying suits and stuff and trying to look sharp, trying to pick up women, oh God, if I go back in time. But the point is I went through and I dated a bunch. I sowed my wild oats, and now the good thing is, now that I'm married with child, like I don't have any desire to go redo that. I don't have any desire to go out at all. Like plus I hate it when I would drink. I would always, wake up feeling regret, and I hate, and the fact that I don't do that anymore is a huge positive in life, because literally every Monday I would wake up and I would just be dreading looking at my bank account at what I did to myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how would you spend money? Just on suits or going out to the clubs?
Well, first it was on bottles, right? And then you realize you can't keep that pace up very long, but you like having tables. So then but I live downtown, so literally I was going out, it was crazy. I was literally going out Monday, Wednesday, because those were industry nights. So that's where you would party with the people that worked on the weekends, right? So that's how you got because basically it's all about who you know. It's like a job, right? So like literally I was going out Monday. The only night I didn't go out was Tuesday because there was really nothing going on. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? And so that's that was. And so I started off, like I said, getting bottles, and it was like going, because you're trying to impress people, right? It's all about trying to get the girl to pay attention to you. It's all about and so it's but then you realize your money won't go that far. So then you have to start making connections. So basically you start having your I started having my places, right? So every time I would go to the same place because I had my bartender. So literally, you know what I mean? And then it got to the point where I became so advanced that I would go fishing. That's what I would call it. Basically, I would go to a club. I used to go with people, but then I was more fortunate than most of the people. Like most of the people that party they're all facade. Like most of them don't have enough money to party like that every day. They shouldn't even be out, but they are. And so I would hang out with these people, and I would end up covering a lot of the thing, right? Covering a lot of the blunt, because like I said, I treat others the way I want to be treated. So I would go buy the first round, ask me how many rounds they bought me back, probably counted on one hand, right? In 7 years, probably counted on one hand. And so I learned that lesson. And so what I started doing was like, well, then why do I need all this dead weight, right? Why am I going to carry all these people? Especially whenever at this point I had made a name for myself at all these places. So I would go by myself and I would hang out with the bartender. And when beautiful girls would come up, I called it fishing. I would literally just tell my guy, like, hey, I would give him a wink, like saying, hey, I got hers, right? And I would do it. So I was really cool about how I did it, because I like I said, I called it fishing because most people like at the time, like it was real. Women would complain that if a guy bought you a drink, they were all over you. We were expected to hang out with them, like, blah, blah, if you accepted the drink. So I made it easy, right? I would just like tell them, hey, give them a shot, and I would give me a shot, and from across the bar, I would be like, think, wouldn't go over there, wouldn't track them down, wouldn't do anything, right? I would just think and say and walk off, right? They didn't all pan out. A lot of them would just take it and run, right? But the thing is you showed you show your status, right? The status that this bartender knows you, right? You got clout like that. 2, you're not cheap because you just, you're not, what I mean? You're not desperate because you're literally just giving it away. And 3, you're not, clingy because, like I said, you don't care. So you're showing all of these, you're demonstrating all these high value, traits. And so let's just say I did pretty well fishing. So that kind of became my thing. But like I said, but over time, I used to date like, 10s, like really, really like beautiful women, because that's what I thought I wanted, right? I thought I wanted a 10. But you come to learn that, that they really want to be taken care of, right? And I was just telling you, I'm making 6 figures. It's not going very far. How the hell am I supposed to take care of somebody else at this point, right? I'm like, I can't, So then I start realizing, I think I need a little more, so I need a little more substance than I need a partner. I don't want somebody that I'm just gonna have to carry the whole time, especially because, I mean, how much money does it take to live comfortably? And when you support a family, right? It's not, I mean, one, if you ask me, 150 is not enough. 200 might be enough, but barely, to be comfortable, right? And so, especially now with the mortgages, right? For example, if you make 150 and your mortgage is almost 4,000, like half your damn paycheck is gone in a month just on where you live. So how are you supposed to pay your bills, your food, your kids, all that stuff with the other half, right? You literally need a whole nother income to make that happen. So anyways, I mean, I'm all over the place, huh?
Yes, dude. Lot of good advice, a lot of wisdom in there. That's really interesting that you say that. So you were downtown, 28, broke up with how many years were you with your sweetheart?
7 years.
7 years through school and through military?
No, so I was married in the military. It was kind of
wow.
It wasn't real love. Like it was I should have done it, right? So but I got married prematurely because I wanted to move out of the barracks. And but what the irony is I never moved out of the barracks. I got married and never moved out of the barracks, but I did get BAH. So I was making some serious money. That's how I was able to save 30 grand or whatever. So but anyways, I was making cash, and then but basically this is how good a girl she was, right? So what happened was I was married and I didn't cheat, but we met in college, right? We met in Spanish class. And when we met, we just hit it off really well, and we became best friends. But then we realized, but basically, she made me get a divorce before she would even consider, doing any dating me at all. So that's how good a person she was. There was no gray area. She was literally if the paperwork's not in, don't talk to me about that. Right. And so, I mean, you have to only respect people like that, because it's man, I wish I had that kind of willpower. But because people with that kind of willpower can do anything.
People with that kind of willpower, yes. It's
that's
dangerous to break that.
Well, it's pretty much, it's not worth breaking it, because you're breaking. I mean, it's like taking someone's virginity, right? It's I mean, it's a gift, it's not something you just take lightly. So and plus, I believe in karma. You do something bad like that, and you're gonna get something for it. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Very unfortunately, karma's not even it just seems to be a thing. It just works. It's like the law of the universe. It's one of the laws of the universe.
Well, some people call it God, some people call it spiritual. There's lots of names for it, but yeah, no, I actually believe in God. It's even though I'm a man of science, it's a tough road to teeter, but The one thing I know about science is it can't explain everything, and miracles happen every day. So, and it's my own personal relationship with, God and all that. Because, like, especially in the Marines, you really need God. You really
What's the reason you need God in the Marines?
Because you're worried you're going to die.
Okay. Were you worried you were going to die?
Well, not once. So initially, right? So, like, it depends. Because, like, remember, we're training for war all this time. So all it takes is one call. And they scare you at boot camp that you can get that call, right? They tell you, hey, Iraq just, well, in my situation, they were like, Iraq just, or whatever. I forgot who it was at the time. I think it was Iraq. I think we were in the Iraq war at the time. And so, or just finishing it. And so they come in and they sit us all down. And they're like, okay, if you're not an 0311, raise your hand. And basically we're all, I'm a computer guy. So like, I'm like, raise my hand. I'm not an 0311. And they're like, you are now all 0311s, because basically after training camp, you're basically getting shipped out and going to Iraq because we've been bombed. We're on call, boom, boom, boom. And they do that to see how many people, will break, or how many people will refuse to thing, and I was one of the ones that raised my hand to refuse it, because I was just a kid. I loved my life, and I didn't want to die. And so, but in any case, like the whole situation, the military, think about this, right? Like I was like Mr. Cool Guy in high school. Like I could go anywhere, I went from being Mr. Cool Guy, Mr. Big guy on campus, to where you're nothing. You're literally less than nothing. You can't even refer to yourself in the first person. And so it's not that it was hard physically. Physically, it was easy for somebody like myself, but mentally was where it was like challenging. And that doesn't change, because even when you get out of boot camp, you're still at the bottom of the totem pole. So you're the one cleaning all the bathrooms, doing all the yard work, doing all the shit jobs, right? And so, and it was tough for me, because like I said, I was like, what makes this person better than me? That's also why I had to get out of the military, because I realized, even though I was a data chief at, as within my first 4 years, but my bosses were all like, 20, 16, 17-year engineers, but they were like, they called it lat moves, where they would move into your field. So they literally had no technical prowess whatsoever, yet they're your boss, right? So I had a hard time dealing with the fact that I would have never been those people's boss, even though I was better than them in every realm of the sense of what we did. I would never be their bosses just because of how long they had been in. And to me, that was part of the thing. Like I was like, I'm out. Like that's why they can't keep talent, because it's like, how are you going to keep the talent when you're basically at the bottom the whole time? So it's like, and then, but you get some rank, you become an MCO, and it gets better, but it's still, like I said, you're still listening to quote unquote, people you don't value their people. You would rather have somebody else in their seats. Let's just say that you would, because ideally when you have a boss, you want that boss to be more capable than you, right? Because you want to be able to know you can trust that boss. But whenever you are better than your boss, and there's it's a tough pill to swallow over time.
That is a tough pill to swallow. And when you're like better, more mature, and you have to take direction from him, that's not that easy. And you're not just old. You're not very old either at this time.
No, at this time, yeah, you're like 19, 20-year-old kid, right? But like, for me, like I was the guy who was, I was the guy, like I could fix anything in our place, right? And these guys couldn't even barely use a computer. So
what do you mean you could fix anything?
Like, so they used to send me, so we supported all these different units, right? And they used to send me, like I was the only one that went to school full time, but they used to send me to all these operations. And I basically, and I felt like I was being punished, right? And I was like, why am I being punished? I'm the data chief, I'm this, and I'm the only one that gets sent out, right? But then it turns out they, after I tried to like say, hey, what's going on? I was feeling depressed, like what's going on? Why am I, y'all not like me or something? And they were like, no, it's quite the opposite. We send you because we know if we send you, everything gets fixed. You're the guy. You're basically, if all we hear is good thing, like, because you're representing your unit, right? So we send you because you're the best representation of what we are. And I'm like, wouldn't my attitude have been completely different had they started with that? Had they told me that this whole time, instead of me thinking I'm getting punished, they would tell me, hell no, we're sending you because you're our superstar. Like that's a whole different attitude. Like, and think about it, like, why didn't they say that, right? I mean, I'm talking about like 2 years of being mistreated like this, and then all of a sudden at the end, I'm like, hey, like what gives, Because I finally at that point, because it took me that long to get dated. It was finally when I had the data chief, I had some say. And so that's when I finally had the courage to say, because, like being the data chief, you have value. So, they value you. So you're like finally, but then as a data chief, I'm still getting sent out. I'm like, what's going on? Because no data chief before me ever got sent out, if you know what I'm saying. So it was like all of a sudden I'm the data chief and I'm still getting sent out. And I'm like, what's going on, man? So, and that's whenever they told me, I'm like, man, this could have, y'all, everything could have been so different for me. My whole experience could have been so different if I would have just known. They saw me as a superstar instead of instead of somebody to be punished.
Communication is huge.
Yeah, it is.
And you thinking that you're being punished, and it's understandable because it's really tough work. It's not easy.
Well, you're in the desert, so you can't take showers for weeks. You're literally, they throw you in the middle of nowhere. You're literally taking canteen showers for weeks, so you literally think you're being punished, right? And so like, but like, I mean, I won quite a few, I don't say awards, but like they're called CG coins, like commanding general coins. Man, I actually have a pretty good story about one. My very first one that I got. So, because basically in very few situations, the general will come out and see these exercises or whatever, right? And when they do, they'll parade around and they'll ask the guys in charge is like, hey, is there anybody here that deserves some recognition for for crushing it? And so, bless you. And so I actually, maybe I'll pull them out. I'll show you one in a second if you want to see one. But anyways, basically what happens is they say if there's anybody that deserves they ask if anybody deserves a recognition. No, not a coin. I didn't know what it was. Just recognition. And so we come back from this operation, right? We're coming back. We finally get the shower. And me, to be honest, I was a Marine and my hair was pretty much like this, except, because basically I learned the regs, right? So it has to be 0 to it can have 3 inches. So even this it was probably longer than this, right? So it was like 0 to 3. So but you're in the middle of the desert and you don't have product. So literally my hair was like, right. Anyways, so I get back from the desert and we're showered and we're exhausted because we've been doing night ops and all this stuff. So we're exhausted. And I come in, I'm literally like half dressed and I'm sleeping on my like just on my gear, right? Just on the side of this, because there's huts. They're like metal huts and they're called case bands, but they're huts. And they're just sitting on this and it's all dirt floor. So I got my gear there and I'm just laying on top of it, just passed out, right? And then the guy, one of my other colleagues or co-workers or whatever came in and it was like, Olgin, hey, get up, get ready. The general's coming to see you. And you're like, yeah, right, whatever, that's a joke, everybody, I mean, that's how you pass the time with playing with people, right? And nobody's ever heard of this, right? So I'm like, and he's like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm back asleep, right? And he like comes back, he's like, Olgin, get up, the CG's coming to see you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And so I fall back asleep. And the next thing you know, the fucking commanding officer comes in, not the CG, our commanding officer is like, Olgin, you're not dressed. What? The CG's coming to see you. And I'm like, holy, now you're like, because he's like a 04 and I'm like a Lance Corporal at the time, right? And he's like, he's like, oh shit, but by that time it's too late. So I'm getting up trying to put my socks on, that stuff. My belt's not done. I don't have my blouse on. I have my cover on. I don't have nothing, right? And he's like, oh, too late. Boom. Everybody, the CG's here standing at attention. So literally I have barefoot, one sock hanging off. My pants are undone. My belt buckle is like to the side. My shirt's half untucked. I'm not wearing anything, right? And my hair's right from sleeping. And so literally the CG comes in and that's how I am. And I'm like, the whole thing. And it's the worst part was, it's an embarrassing story, but that's the end, right? Like, I go through the whole thing, and the CO and the commanding officer are like sitting there, like just looking down, laughing under, you know what I mean? Like the CG, the commanding general kept his bearing, and I did too because I was scared of shit. You know, I'm like a little 19-year-old kid, and so he's like, you know, and he gives me the whole, you know, and then he asked me, he's like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I'm such an idiot, man. I'm such an idiot because at this point, I think I was in like 13 months, and like I had just missed the cutting score for corporal E4 by like 5 points. And the only reason I did that was because there's these things called MCIs, which are your schooling that you get points for. I was 8 days turning them in late, so they didn't hit till the next quarter. And so if I would have got those points, I would have hit it. And so our scores were pretty low because of the turnover in data, right? Network guys would get out, so our scores were pretty low to get promoted. But I was like, you know, in my mind, I was next in line to get promoted. So I was like, oh, I'll get promoted next month, right? I didn't know. And so, but basically, my MOS closed. So I went from being the next promoted, from being a 13-month corporal to all of a sudden I had to wait a year. So I was like a 2-year corporal. So like that's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And so because your first NCO stripe is the biggest, because that's the moment that you go from doing all the you know, doing all the trash duties to actually now it's like, okay, now you're doing them, but now you're overseeing everybody doing them. You're not doing, you know what I mean? You're not responsible. You're responsible for making sure somebody else goes in and they does a thing, which is much better than being the one that actually scrubs the toilets, you know? And so anyways, if I could have gone back in time, I would have asked, you know, the CG, hey, you know, I just missed cutoff by 5 points. Can I have those 5 points to get promoted? I guarantee you if I had things, he would have done it, right? But I didn't know that it was going to close the next month. And hindsight, they say hindsight's 20/20, but hindsight's more like 20/5, you know, because basically, you know, because you know how the site works, right? 20/20 means 20 feet looks 20 feet, like it looks exactly. But it's not, it's way more clear. Like looking back is way more clear than just normal, right? It's like 20, it's like, damn, it was that obvious and it was right here and you missed it. And so, anyways, that was a cool experience that I had. I don't even know why I brought that up, but
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was just fun. But I ended up getting like 4 CG coins. I got awarded. But and it's what crazy is they're like it's more notorious. It's like more prestigious than a NAM, right? A Navy. I didn't get any NAMs. All my NAMs I got put up for got knocked down for whatever reason. Well, I think politically I wasn't liked because I was a data chief so young, and on top of that, I was like I worked out with our CEO, which is kind of like unheard of. Like because I was in the gym every day, and he saw that I was in the gym every day, and then over time, like I worked out with our XO and our CO, and that's kind of fraternization, right? And that's kind of how I got out of going to Japan, right? The CEO was like, no, we're not sending him. You know, we'll send somebody else, right? And so, you know, higher ups don't like when you're chummy chum with their bosses. You know, because now it creates a weird situation for them because they can't really discipline you because now they're worried you're going to go behind their back and tell on them, which I would have never done. But they don't know that. It just makes them uncomfortable. And so, but anyways, they say that the CGs are more, the coins are more prestigious than NAMs, and I'm like, can I wear this on my shirt? You know, I was just, you know, these coins, right? I'm like, here, let me, I'll see if I can. Oh, look, I have them right here. Yeah. So this is the one. So I was at division, right? I don't know if you can see it, right?
Yes, I can see it.
So that's the division side, right? And then so it says First Marine Division, Marine Corps, right? United States Marine Corps, and then on the back it says presented by Commanding General. And this one was a 2-star, right? So
very nice.
So I have that one. And then this was a different general. This one was General. One of them was General Newbold. One of them was General Hagee. So here's the other 2-star, right? And then I was also presented by a sergeant major, right? So these are all awarded. So they're all like they have they have ceremonies like basically, you know what I mean, for you, right? And then and this one I don't know why, but the 3-star was less impressive, which was kind of. I don't know what it is, but I have a 3-star one that I cannot find it now. But my 3-star one is bigger, but it wasn't as pretty with all the colors as you know as these were. So it was kind of weird. You would have thought the 3-star would have been a nicer coin. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, and also I don't know if you know that you've heard of the drinking game with military guys during those events. They always have a coin. Whoever's coin wins. This would be a pretty tough coin to beat.
Why is that?
In case because most of them are just unit coins, right? They're not really. Most people don't get these. I don't know anybody else that has one. So like,
What's the networking game?
so with like at the Marine Corps ball or events like that, they basically, I mean, they basically, some people who have a really good coin will come out and bust it out on you if they think they can, you don't have something to beat them. It's like a war game, right? If my coin's better, you're buying my drink. If your coin's better, I'm buying yours. So I never really played that game, but that's a game. That's why these coins exist. I mean, I don't know if that's why they exist, but that's what people do with these coins. Is they
Got
use
it.
them. That's the time they get to show them off.
Got it. So while you were enlisted, you were chief solutions architect, had a lot of field experience with networking, and then went to school, theoretical, a lot of theoretical electrical engineering. What did you do when you graduated?
Oh,
What was
so
your
when
next step?
yeah, remember when we graduated? I told you about the 4 years Marine, 4 years NMCI, so now 8 years experience. Got my degree, and all of a sudden I had a job offer from Raytheon working on. This is when I started getting the R&D side. So the whole time I had been being the operator / maintainer of networks, right? I built in tactical environments, but more or less the enterprise like NMCI they're already existing. You're just maintaining the stuff that exists, right? So being at Raytheon, that was the first time I got into where you're doing research development, trying to build, help them with their prototypes and help get through testing and meet all the like the requirement. You're trying to meet all the performance requirements and specifications. So because each one of these systems has a list of requirements, and you have to create tests to prove that all these systems can do what they say they do. So that was my first point of that. But this is another good lesson example, right? Is at Raytheon, right? I was so gung ho. I was so Raytheon. This was shit in 2017 or 2007. So Raytheon was really badass in 2007. They kind of fell off a cliff like afterwards, and they're slowly getting their way back up. But Raytheon used to be like the Northrop Grumman, like the way we see Northrop Grumman now, because Northrop Grumman kind of took over everything. And but Raytheon used to be that level, and and so I was like, sweet, a great company. I'm gonna go in, do 20 years, come out an executive, gold pin. Hell yeah, that's what I was gung ho. And so, but this was my introduction to business. So I joined this team, and with this team, there was like 20 people in the team of engineers, and I learned quite a few lessons actually, right? So I was young, and I started discussing salary with everyone. I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting screwed, right? So I started discussing salary, and as time went on, and most of these people were older than me. Remember, I'm some young hotshot kid out of college, so most of these people were older. They have families to support, blah, blah. And so I did the wrong thing by discussing this, because it turns out I was the highest paid person on the team. So it created a lot of turmoil between the team, right? And so, yeah, right, yeah, right, yeah. So my boss, so after I'm talking to him about people, it comes back like they're all nice to my face, but behind their back they're talking shit, right? And so basically my boss comes up to me and has a talk with me and says, dude, we don't, because they don't tell you not to discuss it, right? It's like an unwritten rule not to discuss it. And so they're like, so now everyone's brought it up. He's like, don't, he's like, odds are, because basically when that happens, now they're like, now we have to go back and review your stuff to make sure you actually rate the money you got. Right. So they have to like audit your thing. Right. And, but I mean, it was also, but he was like, he's like, I've looked at your resume. He's like, odds are nothing's going to happen, but man, this was a dumbass. You're like, what the hell were you thinking? That kind of thing. And, cause honestly, like when they called me for the interview, right, they needed somebody that was a prior Marine, that was a network guy, that had a degree, that had 8 years experience, and whenever they talked to me, I said, let me ask you, how many people with those requirements have you found? And they're like, you're the only one. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? So obviously I met all the wickets, so I held the requirements. So nothing happened, but that was my lesson. I never discussed salary at work, right? I never did that again. And then, but it didn't really matter in the long run, because it was a system, right? And all these guys were like, basically for me, the way that I learn a system is I get on the system. So literally I was on the gear the whole time that I was there, right? And these guys were all writing reports, doing all this stuff, not being on the system, right? They'd come out, run a scenario, do their stuff, and then go back, disappear for a day, whatever, gone, right? I was literally on the system the whole time, doing my reporting while I'm on the system. Like literally, I grab a laptop and I'm writing up next to the system as I'm doing it, the way you should be doing it. And so literally in a couple of months, like I knew the system better than everyone else. So like everyone was coming to me for information, right? So all of a sudden I went from being the new young kid to being like the key personnel that could set this entire thing up by himself, or fix this entire thing by himself, right? So now they saw the value that I added, so nobody ever brought that up again. But what the thing that sucked was after the whole they did a ramp up to get through these testings, right, to show the system could do its meet all its procedurals and all its requirements. And once the test was over, they sat 30 of us engineers in the room and they said, "Hey, our funding's been cut. I understand, we don't want to lose everyone, but we won't be able to keep everyone. So we understand if you go out and look for another job." So I had just joined this team, right? And I'm over here thinking I was going to do 20 years, this gold, Raytheon. I was going to do 20 years. I was gung ho. I was loyal to this company. And then they sat me in the room and they said, "There's a chance we're not going to keep you." And I'm like, and so obviously I put my resume out and within 4 days I had another job offer, right? And and it was for more money. So that's the biggest funniest thing, was because after it was all said and done, they wanted to keep 5 people. I was one of the 5 people that they wanted to keep, right? And they didn't tell me. The same thing with the people not communicating, right? They didn't tell. If they would have told me before they sat me down in the room, like, "Hey, you're one of the guys we want to keep," I would have never looked away. I would never have my heart broke. I would have looked at this whole situation, experienced a whole lot different, right? But I did it, and I was given. "Oh, you broke my heart." Remember the love thing? You broke my heart. Now it's easy for me to leave you, right? And so I was when I got that job, it was pretty powerful too, though, man, because we're sitting in the room and they basically go around the room and they're offering all these people jobs, and then I was the only one that said thank you, but I respectfully decline. And then everybody was like, everybody in the room was like, "Holy shit!" 'Cause I didn't tell nobody, right? I kind of just did this, but so after they left, the boss came and he grabbed me and he's like, "Hey, if you don't mind, I want to talk about this." And I was like, look, I was planning to be here forever, I was like, so I was like, but nobody told me anything about me being the one or whatever. And now you told me you're hurting on money, because they asked me how much the other job was for, right? And I said, you're this one, you're telling me you're hurting for money, and this one's like $12,000 more. So it's kind of hard for me to believe you can make that up. And even if you could, what's to stop you from getting rid of me in the future? If money pinches happens again. And so anyways, that's whenever I learned business is business. And I didn't really, after that, I was kind of butthurt on big companies. So I kind of started going smaller companies because, I didn't, like in that situation, I was carrying the weight of 20 people, right? And I didn't think that was fair, and I didn't like that, right? I would love nothing more than to work with a team of people better than me, right? I would love nothing more. I would love to work with a team better than me, because if you're around people that are better than you, you're learning, you're growing, right? But if you're the best one, people are sucking it out of you, right? They're basically sucking your life out of you, and you're like, and you're not getting anything in return. All the stuff that you're getting is your own self-initiative to go learn more and get better, and nobody's feeding that, right? And so, I've always been looking to join teams that are better than me, and I'll let you know when I find some. I'll let you know when I find some, man. I hate to say it, because like I said, that was the other thing, right? Go back. I try to apply this downtown. I try to play the same concept downtown. I said
The social life.
Yeah, I was like, if I could get a handful, because remember I was trying to get tables, right? And tables are like $1,000, $2,000 a night. I was like, if I could get 5 guys that are better looking, more successful than me, then we could run the whole fucking town. We could run the whole and pay for it, and we all split a table, $200-$300 a piece a night. That's doable, right? Like, it's like, okay, if to have a bottle, or to have bottle service, hell yeah, that's doable. And so, and if you're all gorgeous dudes, then, like I said, if I was the ugly one, could you imagine the great times that fucking we could have had? It could have been amazing. And I would meet guys that were either better looking than me or more successful, and I would try to do this, right? But honestly, it never worked out because the guys I have a good story, right? Like, I mean, I'm from the hood, the whole, I'm a passion, as you hear me talk, I'm passionate about life, right? This is hard to replicate. And so
Yes.
when you're out, even if the guy's richer or better looking than you, if they don't have this passion about life, women are going to be drawn to the guy that's passionate. So do you think these guys wanted to continue hanging out with me, even if especially if they were better looking or more successful or whatever? And a lot of these guys that were rich, they were rich, not, being right place, right time. I'll give you an example. One of the guys, like, basically all he did was buy in bulk, repackage in smaller things and sell. And then basically he made profits off of that. Right. So how does that compare to somebody who's doing R&D, developing communications for the military? Right. Like, it doesn't. There's no story there. There's no background there. It's because, so it's like these guys would never want to hang out with me because of that. Or I was never able to achieve that because over time they didn't want to hang out with me because the girls would be drawn to me, even though my objective, like, I wasn't trying to get the girls, but like I said, people in general, we're attracted to passionate people. Like, we're attracted to energy. If you're a no energy person, nobody's gonna be attracted to you. Like, I shouldn't say attracted, drawn to you, right?
Yes.
But when you're passionate, you're like, holy shit, this guy is passionate about everything. People feed off that energy,
Yes.
And so, but like, I mean, I've tried to apply that, like, even now, when I try, and then, like, because I became the point where I was a chief engineer and I was building the teams, and I realized I couldn't find people that were like older than me that were better, or else they probably want my position, right? But not just that, like, I would try to build young people. I mean, this is kind of like, and this kind of like affects mine and your relationship a little bit, because I was kind of I was traumatized, or I carried baggage from my past, because I used to look for kids right out of UCSD, because I'm like, all right, these kids if they can get through UCSD, they got a good head on their shoulders, and I can build off that. So I used to look for ambitious young kids that had a good from UCSD, right? And I would hire them. And the problem is I would even hire, like, for example, if they didn't have the experience, like one guy didn't have the experience, but he had a CCNA, right? So I hired him as a tech writer, and I brought him, but then as soon as the position opened, I brought him over because I saw the potential, right? And so then I would hire another tech writer that wanted to be a network guy to replace him. And I kept doing that, right? I kept hiring people that didn't necessarily have the qualifications, but they had something I could build off of. And so what the thing was is, but you have to have a team of some young, some old, and because it has to be a mix between senior and young, right? And the young people get paid, 50, 60, and the older people get paid in this situation, like 85, 90, right? It's a pretty big difference. And these young kids because basically I built a lab, I built all the processes, like how to run the tests, how to capture the data, how to analyze the data, how to report the data. I built all of these wickets, right? Or all of these processes, and I would teach them these processes, right? And so these kids would pick it up very fast, right? Because they were ambitious and young and hungry. And so they would pick it up very fast. But then, like, within a few months, they're sitting there talking to you about deserving a raise, right? And I'm like, and I saw their argument in the sense that, they were young and ambitious. And like I said, you had some young, some old. And over time, these kids were running circles around these older guys, right? Because they're just, it is what it is. So they felt they deserved to get paid at least what they got paid, right? And that's where I would get upset, because I'm like, look, if you came to me and you were the one that had all these ideas and you were doing all this on your own, then we could have that conversation. But literally, all you're doing is everything that I taught you to do. I literally taught you everything you do. You're not doing anything outside of that. I said, so you're literally just slapping me in the face for the gift that I gave you, right? Instead, that's how I saw it. Because literally, I'm not saying, like, literally these are months, not years. Like, if it gave me a year or two, like if the year review came up, they didn't give me a chance to show them that I saw their value. They didn't wait for that. They wanted their money now. And so to me, I was like, and so then I started getting burnt out, or not burnt out, but then I don't hire young kids anymore. Now I hire mid-range older guys, because they would appreciate the gift that I give them. Right. And so that's kind of where I felt. But that's kind of like how mine and your relationship kind of went sour, was because I kind of put that on you, and I apologize for that, because I was worried you were going to burn me like everyone else.
No, you did. I didn't burn you. You were, We
Yeah, but
had
we could have had a great work. I saw a lot of potential in you, and I saw a lot I could build off of. But whenever we had our whatever, it would turn me off, and I just completely disengaged.
Yes, it's understandable. Especially, by that time I had a little experience, but junior engineers are really clueless. And you made a good point. Like, they're not doing design. They're not they're not designing processes, and they're not designing like ways that the product is going to be created. They're just doing the operation of the procedure, which takes engineering, but you're the one who's designing because you've had this experience over over 10 years by this point.
Yeah, 14 years at this point. Yeah.
So you're and young engineers, they think they know way more. I was on that boat. I think they know way more than they actually know.
But at the very least, you were developing your own processes. At the very
Yes.
least. So that's more than they were doing.
Yes, that's true. That's huge. And what do you think? So, now, you recently told me about a new adventure getting into, what is it? Is it Web 3.0 or what are you getting into?
Well, I became I knew about Bitcoin, and I could have bought Ethereum at 30 cents. And I had every intention of buying like at least 100 coins at like 30 cents or $3, up to $3. But back then, the technology is an excuse, right? If I would have wanted it, I would have done it. But let's just say now it's very easy to get a wallet, exchanges, change coins. Before it wasn't quite that simple. And so I didn't do it. And my buddy mined, this is how crazy, like he mined 40 Bitcoin off of Raspberry Pi. That's how long ago we were talking about this stuff. And I thought it was, I didn't do any research. I just thought I was like, oh, well, cool. Because I told him when it hit $400, sell it. I was like, sell it. Luckily, he didn't listen to me. But I was like, sell it. And so I could have bought Bitcoin at $400 or whatever, or even then that was at the high, right? So it fell out. I wasn't monitoring it, but that was when it hit its new high. So obviously it came back down after it hit that new high. So I probably could have gotten it for like $100, right? So at the time, and I did it. And so fast forward, and it comes back on my radar again. And then I start looking into I took a blockchain course, right? On YouTube is kind of like, YouTube is where I go for everything learning. There's classes on everything. Like right now, I'm really heavy into like DevOps. So like Kubernetes, containers, Docker, Ansible playbooks. I'm trying to build that into my lab at home. And so, because that's kind of the future, right? Because with the whole, the DevOps thing, the ability, if something fails, the ability to automatically just automatically build out a whole new string of equipment, because now everything's virtualized, right? So you can basically deploy a whole new network string. You have the router, firewall, WAN optimizer, all this stuff, CT, PT, all that, IPsec, all that stuff automatically, deployed and configured. And so if something fails, you just, instead of trying to fix it, spend days trying it, fix it, you can literally rebuild it in minutes, right? And so I see the huge value of that, especially because now with everything becoming so software centric and becoming so complicated, how are we supposed to expect these 19 and 20-year-old sailors to be able to maintain it? They're not going to. Simply, they're not going to. They're not. So they got to be able to heal themselves. So that's kind of like what my focus of that's the Sec DevOps and all that is, the ability to automate, the system to heal itself or fix itself. And granted, redeploying a whole new string is to the extreme. A whole new network string would be the extreme after doing all the troubleshooting internally automatically. But that's where my limitations are right now. Is I started as a software guy, but I never fed it. And if I could go back in time, that's one thing I would do. That's one thing I would completely change. I would have kept my software skills. I would have continued developing them, because now I realize that ideas are great, but if you can't execute them with code, you got nothing.
Everything's code.
Everything's code. They're the superheroes. my vision, all that is pointless without software, guys. So it's like and now I'm 43, looking back, kicking myself in the head. And so, anyways, but the point is blockchain, right? I took a blockchain course, like a 7-hour blockchain course online on YouTube, right? Or watched it. And when I saw it, I was like, holy shit, this is the future of banking. I was like, having a public ledger, like that can't be and then having the fact that you have network convergence, it's almost impossible to get, because you know how it works, right? You know how it works. So basically, when a ledger you have a public ledger that all the transactions happen on, and basically all this ledger gets pushed across the entire network, and it has to gain like 60-70% concurrence across the entire network for it to actually get stamped into place, into finalized, into the block being achieved and solidified. And when that
and that's why there's a delay between when the transaction is initiated and when it's validated, because the
convergence time. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, a public ledger with that you can't hack, because I guess quantum computing, would be possible maybe in the future, but when you're talking about nodes that are global, it's pretty impossible, because these nodes are global. And so because I started mining Ethereum, right? So I built my own when I saw the blockchain course or whatever, and all that, I bought in right away. And GPUs were already like crazy off the market because of mining. So literally when it happened, I bought like 6 3090s, right? But I couldn't buy them at the store. I literally went on Facebook Marketplace, and the way I had the money was when I left one of my jobs, I started a company on the side. And so when I started the company on the side, I had L3 that wanted me to help them get into ONR's doorway. And because I had worked for ONR, Office of Naval Research. So I had a very good relationship with them. And they have this open BAA to where if you have ideas, there's a potential to fund them. So L3 put me on contract to help them get their ideas funded, which we were able to pull off. But once we pulled it off, they cut ties with me. So it kind of hurt. It kind of hurt, but I can't get mad. They gave me 70 grand on the side to do this. So they paid me, I didn't do it for free. But with that 70 grand, I basically started buying crypto, right? I started going crazy in crypto and blockchain and buying the mining thing. So I went on Facebook Marketplace. I looked for all those 3090s I could find that were $2,000 or like around $2,000, and I drove to LA and I just literally went to 6 different places and I picked up 6 GPUs. I bought all the components on Amazon. Because now I had a company, right? All of this stuff now becomes like write-offs, right? Because now my company is not just networking and all that; it's also blockchain, right? So now I'm like, okay, because so it becomes an expense for your company, and so now, and then I wasn't smart enough, because to be honest, even the power that I was using could have been a write-off, and I didn't write that off. So because the power that you're using because it's a huge power hog. My electric bill is like $600-700 a month.
Wow.
But I was mining in the beginning. Oh, that's the other thing you don't know, right? Or that I didn't know, because right off the bat, I was mining like 0.33 Ethereum. Like I was mining a coin once every week in the beginning, an Ethereum coin. This is back when they were like $1,200-1,300, but I didn't know that the difficulty goes up. So basically, as time goes on, the difficulty, as miners keep adding on new nodes, the difficulty goes up. So now, basically, a couple of months down the road, instead of making a coin once a week, I'm making a coin once a month. And then towards the end, before they cut it off, it was like 2.5 months a coin, right?
And when you say before they cut it off, when they went to 2.0?
Yeah. When they went to 2.0, they cut off the mining. It became
proof of stake.
They went from proof of work to proof of stake, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
And so basically now my GPUs are sitting there. Oh, I did get solar though to offset the cost, right? And the solar's a write-off. Even the finance charges are, even because I finance mine, right? I don't know if you know this, but even the finance charges are a write-off, especially if you have a business. So
what's a finance charge?
Like you have a loan for 20 years, right? Only a certain amount is going to, like your house. only you got your principal and then your interest. Your interest is your finance charge, right?
Understood.
So yeah, so basically I could have been writing that off. I didn't find this out until recently. So like your credit cards, those kind of things are finance charges as long as you use them for your business, then those are deductibles as well. I'm like, crap. So I didn't know all that. So anyways, I started getting into crypto and buying, and then I found out about the metaverse, right? So the Web3, that's the future, right? That everything's gonna be built on Web3. Like that's gonna be websites, metaverse, everything. It's basically the new internet, right? It's gonna be for crypto. Like think of it as Web3 as the crypto internet. That's how I look at it, because it's kind of like everything is gonna be on Web3. The application, the dApps, like I said, the metaverses, everything is gonna be Web3 because they all got to be interoperable with each other, right? And so for me, I got crazy when I saw Ready Player One, right? Ready Player One, you saw Ready Player One, I'm sure, right? And so when I saw Ready Player One and I learned about blockchain and then I heard the metaverse, I was like, holy shit, we're a lot closer to Ready Player One than I realized. And so then I started looking and doing my research on which metaverses were the most mature, which ones are the best, and which ones were built off the best, ecos or the best blockchains, right? So obviously Ethereum is like the king of the metaverse, or in terms of developers, the number of developers on the blockchain. Ethereum is the king of over everyone, right? Period. Right now, but I have really high hopes for Cardano, right? Cardano's, you have to look at the tokenomics and because basically, there's a lot more Cardanos in circulation than there are Ethereum. And then with 2.0, Ethereum became deflationary, where now they burn, instead of all the gas fees going to the miners, they just burn it. So now they've burned, I don't know, 40 million coins or whatever, however many millions of coins they've burned already by the time they hit 2.0. So it became deflationary. So they can't, they're not going to make more coins. They're basically, it's only going to dwindle down. And so it's only going to, supply demand, right? So as the supply goes down, it's going to naturally increase the price of Ethereum. And so, but we know the downside of Ethereum is the gas, the fees, the transaction fees, right? It's got a high transaction cost. And so that's why these layer twos came out, like Polygon and Arbitrum and all this. Arbitrum's like one I would love to get involved in, but they don't have a coin. So I don't know how, I still haven't figured out a way to buy in on that one. So, but
what do they do?
Well, they provide layer two services. It's all, I don't know.
dApps?
No, it's it's not necessarily dApps. So basically what it does is it takes, because you have your ledger, right? So I don't know exactly how it does it. Basically, it takes the transactions that are going on Ethereum and it offloads them to its chain. It does its computation and then it hands back to the layer one and it says, hey, these are my calculations, my finalized things. Here you go. And somehow they have a cooperation between each other that actually works. So that, because basically these layer twos allowing Ethereum to scale by allowing more transactions, lower the fees by using these other blockchains with lower fees. And but I mean, Ethereum is trying to work on sharding to get rid of all of to basically not need them anymore, to basically scale itself. And
what's sharding?
Basically like micro transactions, like where I honestly haven't researched it well enough to tell you concretely what it is, but because it's on the roadmap. It's not something they've implemented yet. So I've just heard of that the guy Vitalik, I don't know how to say his name.
Vitalik.
Yeah, Vitalik, that guy, the Ethereum, he talks about it all the time. And so that's how I'm like, that's how, so me personally now so what happened was I started getting into this metaverse, right? And it's very premature right now. It's at its infancy stage. And so the big players right now are like, to me, there's the Sandbox, there's the Decentraland, and then Cardano has Pavia. And those are kind of like the big ones that I'm looking at, right? And so I have land in Sandbox and Pavia. I was a dumbass, man. I had like 40,000 Cardanos, and I basically converted them all into land at the top. So like I have like 56 pieces of land. I have like 6 estates, which are like 9 land blocks together. So I have like 6 estates and like 56 pieces of land all over the map. But had I waited, because I could have, with the 40 grand, I probably could have, like, instead of 50, I probably could have like 100, because of how much it fell. And so I have all this land in these worlds or whatever. And in the future, you're either going to rent them out, or you're going to sell them, or you're going to do something with them, right? Which you can build games on them. So I started looking into building games, right? And so the first thing you have to say is which game operating system can you use to build off of, which will be interoperable with your world. And the two big ones are Unreal and Unity. So I started building in Unity because that's the one that it works for both Sandbox and Pavia. So I mean, but I only got, this is why my whole life was going on, right? Like my whole world. So like I kind of got fascinated by this, but when the crash hit, man, I took a huge, I mean, we all did. I took a huge hit. I lost like over $100,000 in crypto, and so it was a big wake up call, but it also took away the desire. It took away the urgency, right? Because now I'm like, holy crap, especially now, because I mean, I have a feeling the economy is going to be down for a long time. But what I didn't expect was the fact that now, because crypto has always gone with the stocks, except this last, I don't know, few months, it's decoupled from stocks. It's running on a different, if stocks go up, doesn't necessarily mean crypto's going up, and vice versa. So they're running independently of each other now, which is how the stocks are going down right now, but crypto's going up. Like right now, they're considering this a bull run. I don't know if that's safe to say, but with the banks all crashing and all that, it's only created the desire for more people to get into crypto. And like I said, when I saw it, it was like clear as day that this is the future. I'm like, because we don't trust. And I kind of got burned on. I had crypto in BlockFi and crypto in Voyager, two of the exchanges that crashed. So I lost that, or they say I'm not going to lose it, but somehow I'll get some kind of portion of it later, I guess. We'll see. And the other thing I really messed up on was Luna. I really messed up on Luna, man. Because Luna, how it was like, Luna, right? The Luna Classic. Oh, no. So it became like the Solana. It blew up. It blew up real fast, right? And then all of a sudden, it crashed one day. It crashed, and I was like, and when it crashed, we're used to seeing crypto rebound, right? But I didn't do any research. I didn't do any due diligence about how the coin actually works. And so Luna, it basically had its partnering stablecoin, right? Which was like the Terra or whatever, one of the Luna, I don't remember what it was called, but basically had a stablecoin to it, right? And so basically what happened was with the stable coins, people were staking stable coins because they were getting like 12%, 13%, crazy returns, right? So it was in your best interest, and it maintained the dollar value, right? But there's a catch like this. So the way that it worked was, if people bought stable coins, every one that they bought, they would basically take away from the Terra Luna circulation, right? But vice versa is the same. If they sell the stable coin, then it creates Terra Luna coin, right? So I didn't know this. So when the crash happened, basically what happened was the CEO, somebody called the CEO and basically said, hey, how much reserves do you have? Because basically they have the reserves to meet any kind of sales and all that, right? They have the reserves. And at any point they exceed the reserves, and they have to start selling stuff to make up the thing, right? And so it creates a selling frenzy, right? Because if people start selling, then how can the price go up? So anyways, what he did was he said, hey, we have like 500 million or whatever of stability of backup. And so basically it was like an effort. I think the hedge funds probably coordinated this, right? Because it took quite a bit of money. And what they did was because they called him saying, hey, I don't want to disrupt your system. How much do you have in there? Because I want to make sure that I don't mess up your system. That's what they told him, right? They literally called him and told him that. And so he's like, oh, well, we're okay. Just don't do more than this. So what did they do? They did more than that to cause the off balance to where they had to start selling and then once the pegging of the dollar fell down, the stable coin fell from $1, everyone else panics and sells. So you remember what I told you, if they sell, it creates more Luna, right? And in the beginning, they were $160. So it was like 160 stable coins to every Luna. But what I did is when I saw the crash happen, I was like, shit, I threw, in the end, I put like 12 grand in to a dead coin. 12 grand. But I started with like 4 or 5, right? And I bought it at like $60 or whatever, thinking it was going to come back. And then it kept lowering, right? So when it was like at 20, I was like, well, shit, I need to buy in more to get my dollar cost average down. And so, and so I kept doing that, thinking that it was going to rebound because I didn't do the research on the token. And so, and then once I did the research, I'm like, fuck, this is a dead coin. But now I have 3 million of them of a dead token, right? Because I kept buying. In the beginning, I only had like, like 200 because they were like 60, $70 a piece. But like I said, I kept buying as thinking that one day it might be able to come back. But so now I have 3 million Luna coins that are worthless, right? They're worth like $300 or something like that. So and I lost like 12 grand on that thing. So that became my lesson to learn. Like now I don't, when I see a coin crash, I don't just jump in anymore. But man, that was an expensive lesson.
Okay. Wow. Protocols matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do. They
So
do.
they do. And especially with these public ledgers, like people want to start talking about ledgers, we got to know what's the protocol. One reason I like Ethereum is because at least you have Vitalik Buterin out there. And he's he's one of the founders. XRP, you've got David Schwartz. And do you like XRP?
I how do I say this? I have 6,000 of them. So
wow.
So well, I mean, when I hear, because I follow the market closely, so when I had 10,000 of them, so I did sell some, but they're like kind of like, I mean, they went through the SEC whole thing and they came out. So like, and the number of users they have is growing. It's a community that I heard too many people say that that it's gonna blow up. But I'm pretty, man. I probably have about 30 or 40 tokens. Like honestly, because they all serve different purposes, right? You have your metaverse coins, you have your DApp coins, you have your your layer 1s, your layer 2s. So like Cardano, you know about Cardano, right? You know that the founder of that is also the founder of Ethereum. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the founder of Ethereum as well. And so, but that's why Cardano is their ecosystem actually may rival Ethereum, but because of the fact they have so many tokens and all that stuff and because he's slow pushing it, if that makes sense. He's like building it slowly. He's making sure that it's all legit and right. But basically Cardano's getting shit on. It's like the media, the media's shitting on it. So, but I mean, like I said, I had 40,000 Cardano and I put them all in the metaverse, and now I'm back up to another 10. Ideally, I want to have another 40 or 50,000. But I thought I was gonna have more time, man. I thought this economy was gonna hurt for longer because how everything fell 90%, and now it's back up to now it's only like, because before you could have 20 extra money, now you can only 10 extra money when it gets back to normal, And so it's kind of like, damn, do you buy now because they say we're in a bull run, or do you wait to see if the economy, because we're not done, we're not done, like the economy, like we're about to get some bad numbers for the tech sector. So is because they're decoupled from the stock market, is that going to matter? I don't know. The banks, the fact there's too much unknown, right? So all I can do now is dollar cost average as I can. But I mean, what I do is when I hear about a coin, I'm not going to miss it again like I did with Ethereum, right? So like for example, ApeCoin, right? I heard about it not too long ago. I at least bought 100. I bought 100, and now I throw everything in my wallet. I buy it in the Coinbase, and I literally just ship it off. I don't leave anything on my exchange anymore. After the whole, like I said, after getting my money tied up in 2 different exchanges, now not your wallet, not your keys, not your crypto, right? So literally, as soon as I buy it, I offset it. I sell it off to I transfer it over to my private wallets. So yes. Yeah, so my biggest right now that I have is like Cardano, Sand. I'm such an idiot. I mined 11 Ethereum, but I cashed out at 2,600. So
I mean, that's more than it is right now.
Yeah, but not for long. Not the reason. It's only 2,100, and I'm like, damn, because I was hoping, because it fell to 1,400. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, when it hits under 1,000, I'll buy my 11 back, and it never hit under 1,000. I mean, not to say that it won't in the future, but I mean, I who knows, right? Who knows?
One thing I tell people is they really should understand who's developing and maintaining this software. Like,
yeah, don't fall for the salespeople. Don't fall for the Paul Logans and and the ambassador, the rich people like how FX, they bought like Tom Brady, they had everyone being their spokesperson, and then we saw what happened.
Yes, people have to be careful. Well, Ed, we've had a good conversation about networking, engineering, life, crypto. Are there any last words or any advice you'd like to leave our audience?
I guess just the advice my mother gave me when I was a child, and leads for a lonely road, but it's valuable advice. Is my mom always told me, everyone's gonna let you down, your friends, your family. She's like, even me, everyone's gonna let you down. The only person you can count on is you. And as long as you live by that rules, you minimize collateral damage. She didn't. I added on that last part, but the whole. So my life has been very lonely. But as they say, the road to the top is lonely, and it really is, because the more that you learn, the more you grow, the more money you make, all that, it puts you in a different category. Now your peers are no longer your peers. You have nothing to relate to, especially if you're an ambitious, hungry person that's educating. It's hard to hang out with just regular people that are just passive, that are just very passive in life, because like I said, they end up just sucking life out of you instead of giving you anything back. And and then what happens to me is I'm always a better friend than up to other people, and I give people a chance. And when they let me down, I say okay, but they fall out of, what I mean. It's over. It's only a matter of time before they fall out of my radar. Because so the road. So it depends what you want, right? If you want success, and you want to make it to the top, it's a lonely road. But if you want to stay, down with everyone else and be okay with that, I mean, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Not everybody has the same ambitions, but just be sure what you want, because each time flies, and each path has its own requirements, and if you don't meet them, you're gonna end up treading water for your whole life and then saying, where did my life go?
My guest today has been Edward Olgin. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Edward.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully we do this again. We didn't even get to touch into any of my current situation. We didn't get to touch into my career now and what I'm doing and potentially going government and all that stuff. We didn't even get to talk about none of that. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
All right.